दोस्तों प्रोग्राम के अगले हिस्से विच आपां गलबात करनी है जॉन एल्डक दे नाल क्लोवरडेल लैंगली सिटी राइडिंग तो ते नाल ही गल करनी है आपां कैन हार्डी हुणां दे नाल फलीटवुड पोर्ट कल्स तो लिबरल पार्टी के उम्मीदवार ने। आओ सुनते हैं दोवें उम्मीदवार अपनी अपनी राइडिंग्स बारे ते अपने अपने प्लेटफॉर्म बारे की कहिंदे आ। चैनल पंजाबी फिर देख रहे दर्शकों का फ्रंट लाइन में बहुत बहुत स्वागत। दोस्तों असी जिस तरह इलैक्शन के विच वक्-वक् कैंडीडेट्स के नाल तुहाडी गलबात कराउने आ, वक्-वक् उम्मीदवारों के नाल गलबात कराउने आ। अज असी आए हैं क्लोवरडेल लैंगली सिटी राइडिंग दे विच। क्लोवरडेल लैंगली सिटी राइडिंग एक इहो जी राइडिंग आ, शायद इहो जिहियां राइडिंग्स दे उत्ते जस्टिन ट्रूडो होरां ने इलैक्शन का पत्ता खेडिया सी। 1000 वोट के फर्क नाल इत्थों कंजरवेटिव की टमारा जैनसन जित गई सी पिछली बारी 2019 दे विच, ते जे जॉन एल्डक जिहड़े इत्थों 2015 दे विच जिते सी वो अपनी सीट उन्होंने हार रही सी। सो इस बारी लगता ये हैगा लिबरल पार्टी नूं कि ये कुछ सीटां जिहड़ियां थोड़े बहुते फर्क दे नाल हरियां वो जित्तियां जा सकदियां ते मेजोरिटी बनाई जा सकती है। भावें कि अंकड़े इस तरह के नहीं रहे, कंजरवेटिव के अंकड़े भी उपर आ रहे आ। ये गलबात वक्री है, पर इस राइडिंग दे विच जॉन एल्डक की सोचते हैं, ये बारे क्यों वो रन कर रहे हैं। जॉन एल्डक कैनेडा पाक्स कैनेडा के नाल लंबा समा काम करते रहे आ। ਉਹਦੇ तो बाद MBA की पहला इन्होंने इत्थे फिर 2015 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ पहली बार इलैक्शन लड़ी सी, उस बारी जित गए सी, अगली बारी नहीं जित सके। हुणे फिर जिहड़ी इस बारी इलैक्शन लड़ रहे आ। देखते हैं इन्हां दे की इस राइडिंग बारे जां ओवरऑल इन्हां दे की विचार ने इहदे बारे। वेलकम टू द शो जॉन एल्डक, गुड आफ्टरनून।
Good afternoon, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you represented this riding in 2015 and lost in 2019. So what are the reason behind running again for this riding, and what do you think at this time the situation will be different than the 2019?
Right. Well, in 2015 to 2019, when I was the Member of Parliament, I did a lot of work for this riding, bringing investments to the community, helping our families get ahead, dealing with the issues that I was hearing on the doorsteps. I lost by very narrow margin in 2019, and I don't feel my work is finished for the people of Cloverdale Langley City, and that's why I'm back. I also think that the woman who won for the Conservative Party has focused on a very, very social conservative agenda over the last 2 years. She has fought a number of issues, including the ban on conversion therapy that we know is harmful to the LGBTQ community. She fought hospice and Delta offering medical assistance in dying. These are not the values of the community, the very beautiful and diverse community that we have here. And I feel that I can be a voice of all people in this riding in a very effective way, and that would allow me then to continue fighting for things that are important to our community here in Cloverdale Langley City, and that's why I'm running again.
So there are some burning issues in the Canada, and one of that is these anti-vaxxers campaign. They are very few in number, but do you think they have effect on the Liberal Party's overall campaign and in your riding?
Yeah, I think that we've seen the Prime Minister listening to Canadians, the over 80% of Canadians now who are vaccinated, either single or double vaccinated, and those Canadians are saying, we want to get our lives back, we want to get back to normal, and we can't do that until we get more people vaccinated. And so I think that it's actually shifting some of the narrative to being a bit frustrated with the anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, because they're being seen as the ones who are holding up our progress as far as getting through the pandemic and getting back to our sort of normal lives as we knew them before the pandemic. I think that one of the things we've also seen a bit of an ugliness in this campaign, that with the people throwing gravel at the Prime Minister, that's not how we do politics in Canada. And I think that I'm hearing a lot of people expressing concern about that. And so I think that democracy is a beautiful thing. We don't have to agree, but we can be respectful. And so I think that we're trying to take that tone with my campaign. I think the Liberal Party is trying to take that tone with their campaign nationally. And I just ask everybody, to have good discussions, have respectful discussions, and let's try and move forward through the pandemic together.
So the Cloverdale Langley City riding is the fast-growing riding. So many people there coming in, and the infrastructure and the facilities, they are not at par. How, if you win, how will you manage this situation?
Yeah, we're the second youngest population as well, so we have a lot of young families. So to me, it's about having services and facilities that will affect and support our families. One of the things we have agreed to and committed to is SkyTrain to Langley down Fraser Highway from King George Station to Langley City. That is absolutely huge for the Clayton part of Surrey and Langley Township, Langley City, that's going to be absolutely transformative for our community. So that's something I'm really proud of. But there's also things like sporting facilities that we need. We know that one of the priorities for Surrey had been twin ice rinks in Cloverdale at the fairgrounds, and that project got cancelled, but it's apparently now back on the books, and I would fight for federal funding to go with that. There's a project for a performing arts center in Langley Township that is, requires federal funding to go ahead. That would be a regional center, and so we're looking at how we can support that project going ahead. I've been asked at Cloverdale Athletic Park, there's also a lacrosse box that they would like to put a roof on so we can have it all essentially used for all season in many sports. And that's a couple of $1 million, so I'd be looking for funding for that. But it's about listening to families and the residents of Cloverdale Langley City to see what their needs are, working with other levels of government, and then those are the things that I would pursue to make our lives better here in Cloverdale Langley City.
So how's your campaign going, and are there some particular problems of this riding that people are addressing?
Yeah, the campaign's going very well. We have lots of volunteers out. We're knocking on doors. We're having great conversations. The number one issue that I'm hearing is affordability. It's about the cost of housing. It's about trying to find, get into home ownership for people who are renting. It's about trying to provide a good future for our kids. And so, how do we put more money in the pockets of our families? How do we help people get into the housing market? That's the top issue. I used to hear a lot about transit, but we're making a lot of headway on that. So we're hearing less about transit this time. Interestingly, the next issue I'm hearing about is climate change. I think with the heat, the dry, the fires, the smoke this year, people are very aware of the issue of climate change around us. And so they want to see bold action and aggressive action by the federal government leading Canadians as we prepare for a new future, but also try to stop the changes that are happening. A third one I hear a lot about is the issue of people on the streets, homelessness, mental health issues, the opioid addictions and crises, the overdoses and deaths are also something that are of concern to people. And those would be kind of the main issues that we're hearing a lot of. And then you get into other things about that may fall under the provincial system, or education, schools, a lot about healthcare and seniors issues. So it's a good range, but I'd say affordability, climate change, and just helping those who are really in need in our community are some of the main themes that we're hearing.
So you did MBA and then you worked with Parks Canada for a long time, and why you are in politics?
Well, part of the issue is that when I was in the National Park Service, I had to lay off all of my scientists. It was driven by the Harper Conservatives, and I argued against it, saying this is going to lead to bad decisions. We need to be evidence-based. And yet I lost that argument, and the government of the day, the Conservative government, said that we were not really caring about evidence. That it was a drive to balance the budget at any cost at all. And I said to my wife that I had a problem working with the government with that kind of thinking, and she put the challenge to me to do something about it. And so I got into politics because I thought Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party had the best solution for moving Canada forward so that everybody could participate in an open and equal way in it. And I feel that work still needs to continue. We've seen instances of racism, of bigotry. We have ongoing issues with our community, income inequality, where families are struggling. And so I think, how do we work together to actually make this a better community? And that's why I'm running again. So some people, they are saying that Justin Trudeau made a mistake by calling the snap election, because the Liberals, they tried to cash this health crisis for their benefit. What is your take? My take is, I was out door knocking in 2019, and I'll tell you that the issues that we are talking about now are quite different in 2021 than we did in 2019. We've had a lot of spending, and people did not have a say in that. That was not part of the 2019 campaign. People are asking about how we're going to pay off the spending, how long it's going to continue. I think those are really important issues that Canadians should be able to weigh in on. We have said that we will continue helping Canadians and helping businesses survive and ultimately thrive so we can get the economy back on track. And so that's really why I think we're having the election. It's to figure out how we want to get to whatever normal is going to look like, what that vision is from each of the parties, and because we have really important choices. The Conservatives said that they're going to get to a balanced budget. It's based on a lot of, I think, false and flawed assumptions, but it's like, if they're going to do that, what sacrifices are they going to make? What cuts are they going to make? Are they going to do it on the backs of Canadians in areas like healthcare, where they've said that they would go with a private public model as opposed to the model that we have currently? They've also said that they would cancel our $10 a day child care program that we've just signed with the province of BC. I'm hearing from young families that that is a very important program. It's going to put money in their pockets to help them raise their families, afford homes, things like that. So these are the types of discussions, and I think that's why we're in an election now. It's to determine what party has the best plan to come out of the pandemic, lead us to economic recovery and growth, and that's why we're in the middle of an election.
So last time you lost with very margin difference, and yeah, it's just 1%. So this is the most watched riding in the Lower Mainland at that time on the TV. So what are the points based on which you can say the things will be different in 2021 than the 2019?
Right. Well, I think that the big thing is that the two leading parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, have both now had people in office as a member of Parliament. I focused very much on listening to my community, being inclusive, representing all voices. We've had a very socially conservative member of Parliament who has focused on her issues of advancing social conservatism in Cloverdale Langley City. And I think that people are going to be watching that. We are a very diverse community from the countries people come from, the languages we speak, and I think that I offer an opportunity for that diversity to be really celebrated and included in our community compared to the very singular focus on social conservatism that we're seeing from the Conservative candidate. So I think that people in the riding are going to be paying attention to that. So,
John, lots of people, they are in your riding, they are watching our TV. So any message for those?
I think that this is about a choice. It's about who's going to work hard for you. I have a 4-year record of delivering not only millions, but with SkyTrain over $1 billion worth of investments. And I'm ready to go back to work for Cloverdale Langley City. It's about representing all of the voices that we have here. And so I'd say my request would be on September 20th, vote for John Aldag.
Thank you. Thank you very much. ਦੋਸਤੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੌਨ ਐਲਡਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਇਹ ਪੂਰੀ ਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ। ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਇਸ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਜਾਣਗੇ। 20 ਸਤੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਨਤੀਜਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣਾ ਫਤਵਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਦੋਸਤੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਨੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਫਲੀਟਵੁੱਡ ਪੋਰਟ ਕੈਲਸ ਸਰੀ ਦੀ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ। ਇੱਥੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕੈਨ ਹਾਰਡੀ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਆ। 2019 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ 4000 ਵੋਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਿੰਦਰ ਪੁਰੇਵਾਲ ਨੂੰ ਹਰਾਇਆ ਸੀ। ਉਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2015 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਫਰਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ 7-8000 ਵੋਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਗਭਗ ਨੀਨਾ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਰਾਇਆ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਨੇ, ਕਿਉਂ ਚੋਣ ਲੜ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਕਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਅਹਿਮ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੈਨ ਹਾਰਡੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਗੁੱਡ ਆਫਟਰਨੂਨ ਕੈਨ ਐਂਡ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ।
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
So what are the main problems of your riding? You are going door to door. What are the main issues of this particular riding?
Well, of course, we hear an awful lot about guns, gangs, and drugs, and some of the problem. And we've had people shot and in some cases murdered here in Fleetwood Port Kells, which is we have to do something. We have to do something more about it, and we have to do things differently about that. And that's part of the conversation that I'm having, with the people that we speak with on the door. We also, of course, have an issue with housing affordability and the supply of housing. And in the lead up to the election, I had a very good conversation with my contact in the Prime Minister's office, where we talked about the sort of things that the Liberal Party should propose in order to deal with the affordability of housing here and right across the country. And I was really pleased when the Liberal platform came out that the things that I was recommending are included in that platform. So that is to deal with property flipping, to deal with foreign-owned land or buildings that are sitting vacant. These are all things that we also need to do along with building more housing, which we are also doing through the Rapid Housing Initiative, which will have hundreds of units available in Surrey by the end of the year, and longer term where we're putting millions of dollars into the construction of new places for people to live. But the housing piece is especially important because my belief is that a house should be a place for families to live, not an investment or profit center for somebody. We have to change that, and we have to open things up more for people. And then there's the whole issue of hate. You know, we saw the episode at Aspen Park a few weeks ago. Well, what causes that? Why are we seeing that sort of thing? Why are we seeing such attacks on people because of how they look or how they dress or how they love or who they worship? I mean, this isn't necessary. It certainly isn't something that we like to believe is happening in Canada, but it is, and it's happening more and more often. So we need a good community conversation about what we do about that.
And when we talk about the housing affordability, there are some problems which are more related to the city hall. They have the different kind of processes, and the land is also locked. And do you think there is a proper coordination between different levels of the government to address this issue of the housing affordability?
No, we do need better coordination. And the fact is that until a couple of years ago, the federal government had really backed out of the whole housing issue. There hadn't been a federal housing program since the early 1990s. Our government became re-engaged in that. And we saw that investments certainly were needed, investments in co-op housing to build new units or to upgrade the ones that were in place. But we also did see the same thing that you've noted, that there was this disconnect between perhaps municipal regulations and systems, municipal development cost charges and zoning. So we need all three levels of government to come together, and I think this is going to have to happen almost community by community because every community has different dynamics. But we do need to have that creativity and flexibility in order to, first of all, deal with the supply of housing, make it easier to build a house and for people to move in. And also, as I indicated earlier, to deal with people who are sitting on real estate, maybe people who've never set foot in Canada, just using it to make more money for themselves or to hide their money from another jurisdiction. That's got to stop, and that's something that I believe in firmly.
So one more thing we want to know, what do you think are the factors behind your success? In 2019 there is a around 4,000 difference of the votes, and then 2015 there was around 8,000 votes you won. So what do you think, what is the factors or what is the reason behind your success?
It really goes back to my first career in radio. When I worked on the radio especially in small and medium-sized communities, the secret of success was to be close to the community, to understand the community and be visible and present in it. And this is something that I've maintained all along. Since 2015, our strategy here is to be what we call hyper-local. So we have been helping thousands of people with their everyday issues, with immigration, with visas, with the CRA or Service Canada. You know, we have helped so many people, and we've had a saying that a good day of helping the constituents is better than the best day of election campaigning. And so from the moment we set up our office in 2015, our service has been focused on local. And in these days, especially with the pandemic and everybody working remotely, we've found a way to be anywhere from everywhere. So it doesn't matter where I am. If somebody needs to talk to me, hey, it's easy to set up Zoom, right? But there have been suggestions that I don't live in this riding. And that's nonsense. It's rubbish. I've lived on 159th since the last election. I lived on 155th for 10 years before that. And, from 2000 on, I lived over on 82nd. So, any suggestion that I don't live in the riding is, to use an old prairie expression, a load of meadow muffins. And you know what bulls do in the meadow.
Yes, and the last question about the ban on the guns. There is a lot of controversy with Aaron O'Toole and the Liberals. What is your take?
Well, Mr. O'Toole has bent himself into a pretzel trying to keep friends with the gun lobby, who he relied on to become the leader of the Conservative Party, and yet understanding that the vast majority of Canadians agree with what the Liberals did by banning these weapons. But Mr. O'Toole has left himself quite exposed, very vulnerable, because first he said, no, I'm going to repeal the Liberals' ban, which makes all these guns legal again, immediately. Then he said, no, I'll keep the ban, but I'll review the classification. At which point the head of the National Firearms Association came out and said, don't worry, O'Toole's our guy. He's going to make sure that almost all of these weapons are reclassified so we can own them again. The fact is that the Liberals have come down very firmly on the position that there is no room in civil society for people to own weapons that are designed to kill people, period. The police, yes, of course. The military, absolutely. But you, me, or anybody else, any way you cut it, we can live without these without these weapons in our community. And that's our position. Mr. O'Toole is all over the map on this one, but if you watch carefully, he's winking in the direction of the firearms lobby. He'll make them legal again. He'll find a way because he relies on that base for his electoral success.
Thank you very much for your time, Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ਸੋ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਕੈਨ ਹਾਰਡੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਫਲਤਾ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਰਨ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਨੇੜਿਓਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਆ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਨੇ।
ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਚੈਨਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਟਨ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ।